Hi everyone, I'm Rincey and this is Rincey Reads. Today I'm going to be doing the Beloved Books Project. This was a hashtag that was started by someone over on Twitter and Instagram, but I found out about it by Marinas over at My Name is Marinas. I will link to her video where she talks about it, and I will also have links down below to the original sort of poster about this. Basically, this girl on Twitter and Instagram was talking about how in like the booktube, I think she was focusing on like the bookstagram community, but it also applies to booktube, how there's this tendency to want to show off like pretty beautiful books that you own, acquiring a lot of books and making this beautiful book collection, which obviously I have currently at the moment. But she wanted to highlight her more like beloved books, the books that are like really worn, that she's read over and over again, but don't necessarily look really beautiful, but that mean a lot to her. And Mari talked about on her video like how she didn't have a lot of books growing up, and there are a handful that mean a lot to her because she couldn't own that many of them. And that's definitely true for me as well. Like when I was growing up, my parents never bought us books, or like very, very rarely bought us books. Like I think they bought my sisters a couple of books and I sort of acquired them over time. But my parents never saw much value in like purchasing books to own because we would just always go to the library. And also, when you're growing up as an immigrant in the United States, you have limited means. So spending money on books wasn't really a priority. They obviously like encouraged reading, encouraged learning, but again, we would just go to the library for all of our book needs. But I always wanted to buy books. Like I was always so jealous of the kids who got to order books from the Scholastic newsletter that came out however often it came out in the classrooms, whenever there were book fairs or anything along those lines. Like I always wanted to buy books. I may have overcompensated for that now as an adult, which I think also says a lot about me if like my form of a rebellion is the fact that I spend way too much money on books according to my parents. But I do have this small stack of books that I've owned since I was a kid. Most of these I acquired in like elementary, junior high. I have a couple from high school I'm going to talk about here really quickly, but these are books that sit on this shelf, which I call the bottom shelf of my bookshelf, which I basically now refer to as my nostalgia shelf. It has all of my like mass market paperbacks, and most of those are books that I got while I was in high school. But yeah, I never really talk about these books, partially because like I haven't really read them or touched them since I was a kid outside of like taking them off the shelf to like reorganize or clean. But these are books that I will probably own forever because they are the few that I have from when I was a kid, that I was allowed to have when I was a kid. Most of these are books that I either acquired because my sister somehow got a hold of them, and then I just took them from my sister because I'm a typical youngest child and would just steal things from my older sisters all the time. Or they were books that like my teachers gave to me, or that like my library was getting rid of, and so they would like let you take a couple of the books if they were like purging their own shelves. So yeah, these are all books that are like not classic children's literature. They were just the few that I were able to have as a kid, and so therefore they mean a lot to me. They're not necessarily the best books. The vast majority of these are probably unknown to most readers out there unless you just happen to pick it up as well. But you'll see that these books are like worn and torn and well loved. So yeah, let's just jump right in. So yeah, the first three, I'm just going to run through these really quickly, are Cherry Cola Champions, The Ghost Witch, and 2 + 1 Makes Trouble. These two are ones that I believe belong to my sisters. This one I know for sure belonged to my oldest sister because her name is written on the inside cover of the book. I'm pretty sure we got this from church one year. This one, I don't know if it belonged to my sisters or not, but yeah, it's not anything amazing. It's about like a ghost witch or this girl who moves into a house that's haunted, and it's haunted by the ghost of a witch. And I think eventually like they become friends or something along those lines. This is one, again, I have no idea how I got a hold of this, but it's about these two girls who are best friends. This new girl moves to the neighborhood, and like these two want to be friends, but she doesn't like it because she thinks she's a big weirdo. So, and eventually they all become friends. Again, these are not like super great, super like classic children's literature by any means, but I've read these so many times. Like, I don't know, there's no way to like make this really clear on camera from this angle, but these have like the spines are completely like cracked and worn. These aren't the most worn ones I'm going to show you, but these are definitely like books that I have embedded in my brain because I've just read these so many times. Because when you don't have access to that many books, you reread the ones you own a bajillion times. This is another one that belonged to my sister, but I'm separating this one because this one is probably my favorite out of all of them, which can possibly also be told by the fact, like, the condition that this book is in. Like, it's completely cracked and worn and just like stained and everything possible that you could think of. I've read this so many times, and this is possibly the weirdest story that I could have possibly read. It's called The Christmas Tree That Ate My Mother. It's basically about this girl who's like, they get this like Christmas tree that turns out to be sort of like a magical Christmas tree. There's like a secret entrance in there, and the girl's mother, I think they like, the mom and her don't get along very well. And the mom somehow gets put into the like, she gets into the Christmas tree somehow and gets transported, and she gets like stuck there, and so the girl has to go and save her mom. I've read this so many times again, and I also really like this because it was like one of the first situations of like a complicated mother-daughter relationship, which is something that I can understand. But yeah, like, you can see like this book is just completely about to fall apart. Like, I can feel like the binding and the glue in here has worn down completely. The spine is like ripped and everything. And again, this is such a weird book, but I will never get rid of it because it was like a comfort read for me when I was a kid. So next I have The Three-Seated Spaceship. I don't even know who this is by, but this is like printed in like the 1960s, and I know for a fact the only reason why I have this is because a library was giving it away. But it's, again, just one of those like crazy kid sci-fi books. It has like fantastic illustrations in here, which is part of the reason why I think I liked it so much. Like, it has like just really old school classic stuff, and it also just smells fantastic. But yeah, it's about this kid who discovers a three-seated spaceship, and it's like flown by this guy in a crazy cowboy hat, which I don't know if you can see that. But yeah, again, just another one that this is never going to be in anyone's like classic kids library, but it will be in mine. And then the other one that I have from a library is Mrs. Pickle Wiggle's Magic, which, again, this is just a really disgusting old copy. It doesn't have the dust jacket. There's nothing fun on the cover. Like, it's just a really gross old copy that I read way too many times. Mrs. Pickle Wiggle, I think, is considered like classics children's literature now, but I'm not 100% sure about that because I feel like, one, I never hear people talking about it. So there were a bunch of Mrs. Pickle Wiggle books, and I love them all so much. And again, I've read this one a bajillion times. Like, I still remember the stories in here. I was flipping through this prior to recording this video, and I like immediately remembered all of the stories that are in here. That Mrs. Pickle Wiggle is this woman who like loves children so much. She's like this old, lives alone woman. I don't know if she's widowed. They don't say if she's like widowed or just never got married or anything like that, but she loves kids a lot, but she also wants to help them get better. So a lot of times parents will come to her being like, my kids haven't problem with this sort of thing, and then she will provide them with some sort of like magic medicine or potion or something along those lines that'll help them with it. So like the one that I remember the clearest, because it's like one of the first stories in this book, is there are these kids who like don't listen to their parents. Like, every time their parents say something, they'll always be like, what did you say? I didn't hear you. So to help them listen better, Mrs. Pickle Wiggle gives the dad this powder, and then at night he puts the powder in their ears, and suddenly like their hearing is amplified, so everything sounds so loud to them. So then they learn to listen better to the things that their parents are saying. So it's stuff like that, or it's like kids who like are tattletales all the time. She gives them, the parents, something for them to eat that causes them that every time they are about to tattletale, their smoke will come out of their mouths. Like, it's really insane, and it's all about like good behavior for children, which again might say something about me. I'm not sure, but again, I've read this so many times, and this copy is absolutely disgusting. Like, there's I think there are actual food stains in this book. I don't know if this is going to show up on camera either, but yeah, this book is completely disgusting, and I will own it for the rest of my life. Another set of books that I really loved when I was a kid were the Sweet Valley books. I read Sweet Valley Kids, I read Sweet Valley Friends. I think they're Sweet Valley Twins. There's like a whole like different sets for different age groups, and I read them all the way through Sweet Valley High. And one of the spin-offs from the like sort of middle grade level, I think it's from Sweet Valley Twins and Friends is what it says on the cover, was the Unicorn Club books. Again, I wasn't allowed to own books as a kid, and the Sweet Valley kids and high and whatever books were ones that I really, really wanted to own. So one year I was able to sort of like save up my pennies to get one Sweet Valley book. And I love this book so much. I just love the Sweet Valley series so much. And so just the fact that I was able to have this one meant so much to me. And yeah, it's, again, I'm just never going to get rid of it because the fact that I was able to save up my dollars to be able to afford to get a Sweet Valley book just was everything when I was in like junior high. All right, the next three books are ones from high school. So the first one that I have is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, which is a classic. I love this book a lot. I reread it on a pretty regular basis. I'm now at the point where I'm collecting copies of it. If you look here, this is a special edition of To Kill a Mockingbird. I can't tell if I'm pointing at it correctly, but there's also like 6 other, I think I have a total of like 6 editions of To Kill a Mockingbird at this point. But I will never get rid of this radial paperback copy of it, partially because it's just like the first one that I ever read, and it has like all my like underlines and things that I had to do for class. This is also another one that like belonged to my older sister, and I just happened to take hers when I needed to read it for high school. Yeah, this is like whenever I'm rereading To Kill a Mockingbird, this is the edition that I'm picking up. I don't like mass market paperbacks, but this is one that, again, I will never get rid of, and I will always read this version of it just because it's the original that made me fall in love with this book. The binding is falling apart. There probably will have to come a point where I stop reading this copy because like literally like like you can see the individual pages on the other side of the spine here. This isn't gonna last me forever, but I'm gonna try to make it last as long as I can. Another book that I own is Warriors Don't Cry by Melba Pattillo Beals. This is a book that I read my junior year of high school, and it's a nonfiction book. Melba Pattillo Beals is one of the kids who was integrated into the Little Rock schools. I keep this book because it reminds me so much of my experience with U.S. history when I was in high school. The way like our history classes went in high school is like there was an accelerated track, and then there was like the regular track, and then when you got to your junior year, you could choose between taking AP, U.S. history, or just like accelerated U.S. history. If you did AP, obviously you would you were basically preparing to take the AP test so you could get like college credit. I decided I wanted to take accelerated U.S. history because I didn't really care that much about taking the AP test, and I'm so glad that I did, because we were all kids who could have potentially taken the AP class, meaning we were like smart kids who could work hard, but we didn't need to follow this sort of regulation of this is what you need to learn in order to pass the test. My U.S. history teacher was amazing and exposed us to things that I had never been exposed to before. And to be honest, like it completely like shaped the way that I view U.S. history now. She was the first person to expose me to Howard Zinn and A People's History of the United States. She was the first teacher that I had that taught about Native Americans and the crap that they went through, and she talked very heavily about the civil rights movement. And I read this book because there was a point in the year where we got to pick a novel or like nonfiction book that we got to read, and it was stuff like this and like Martin Luther King biography, and the autobiography of Malcolm X was on there as well. She was one of the first history teachers that I had that really challenged my views of U.S. history and really forced us to think critically about the country that we were living in and the privileges that we had, and forced us to see that our country had flaws and actually taught about those flaws. And it was amazing. And again, it just completely shaped the way that I view U.S. history. And I think it's part of the reason why I like U.S. history so much. Like even still, I read a lot of nonfiction books about U.S. history because I think of that class, and it taught me how to think more critically about the country that we live in, which is, again, just something I'm thankful for. So yeah, I keep this book around, even though, I mean, it's not bad. It like teaches you a lot about the civil rights movement and about what it was like for these kids to go into a newly integrated high school. But it's not necessarily like the best book out there about the topic, but I will always keep it because it will always remind me of that teacher that I had in my junior year of high school. And then the final book that I have to talk about is Platos Republic. This is just like a cheapo Borders edition of this book, but again, it was a gift from my government teacher my senior year of high school. He was a really great teacher, and he was so enthusiastic about U.S. government, and he started off our senior year of high school by talking about philosophy, and it was my first exposure to philosophy, and I never thought about critical thinking or philosophical thinking in that way before, and one of the things that we explored was Plato, and he was so kind and encouraging, and he saw a lot of potential in me. And he actually gave this to me when I graduated, and he wrote like a really, really kind card and note that I still keep in this book. I'm gonna like cry because it meant so much to me. But yeah, I've never like reread Plato's Republic since then, and I've studied like some of his other stuff in college because I had to take philosophy classes in college, and Plato doesn't really like resonate with me in the same way, but I have this sort of nostalgia for Plato just because of this class and the experiences that I had. So yeah, this is just like a cheapo copy of Plato's Republic that I don't necessarily like agree with or like am super excited about, but it reminds me so much of my teacher, my senior year of high school, and how much he thought I was capable of. So there's a really mushy way to end this video. So yeah, that's everything that I have to sort of highlight for you guys in this video. As you can obviously tell, I've acquired quite a few books since then, and I'm constantly like purging and getting rid of stuff and adding to my collection and things like that. But these are books that, again, I know for a fact that are going to be in my collection forever, and they are well loved, and they might not be ones that I pick up quite frequently, but they will just always be on my shelf. So yeah, definitely let me know down below if you have books like this in your life, or if you make videos, definitely make your own video talking about some of the beloved books that you have in your collection. So yeah, that's all I have for now, and thanks for watching.